CSRA. Topicality, or their spec argument. The Commerce Clause critique. The gender advantage. Counter plan. And then environment advantage.
All right, so that's the child poverty, the procedural, the critique, the gender advantage, the counter plan, and the environment. Okay.
Matt, you ready?
They say social control not of the United States or justice in 5 states, the U.S. passed compulsory legislation laws in the 1930s. The U.S. started to begin to do so. They did not proceed to the next step to stop national socialist masteralization, a movement at the border of the de facto neither the policy of the structure of the democratic states permitted, which policy actually be enacted in democratic political context and not develop the dynamic of escalation that characterize Nazi policies. We do not lead to control. We lift people out of poverty. We are not the type of policy. In talking about it in their piece of evidence, they said that we don't make a good link extend, or millions out of poverty. Evidence indicates that millions of minorities and other people are able to get out of poverty. They said we don't suffer always suffer from large majority. Social control is not an impact of the United States, especially when they allow for political policies in other areas besides inside of the realm of economics, topicality debate. This does not make a bit of sense. Our counter-interpretation that you can specify something inside of the wars and decisions such as the 14th Amendment or Commerce Clause grounds, or maybe in the amicus brief such as the international law, you get to counterplan out of those things, but you do not get tests out of counterplans, because that's not what real people do. That's not anything about the real world. They say that our interpretation isn't enough because it's not predictable. We allow for predictable, based on the literature, counterplans such as 14th Amendment, Commerce Clause, 13th Amendment, and international law, but specific tests shouldn't be necessary because there would be a contrived disadvantage not based on literature, impossible for the affirmative to get offense because they say that they do not know the case. We have a piece of evidence contextualizing what happened to the world of our affirmative. Our SCOP evidence indicates that Lopez created a standard and Morrison added to that standard, which means that overruling Morrison on Commerce Clause comes in the context of the environment and gender lead goes back to that standard. They say that it's kitty counterplan grant and it's bidirectional. We will link turn this argument. It's only bidirectional if you can talk about something not as a justification for the decision, because you can include something not based in the Commerce Clause. You can include something such as a reverse federalism act or a congressional deference affirmative only in their interpretation, but not in our interpretation. They say that it's kitty pig ground. We allow for good pigs because they allow for unlimited pigs that would be contrived, not based in the literature, and make affirmative have to go for stupid theoretical argument. They say competing interpretations could this lead to a race to the bottom makes it impossible to be affirmative, punish us and fit the crime. I will now go for permutation to do the counter plan, which means that all of their tests of competition will be true. We will just go for permutation to both. We will permutation to both and make arguments outside of these competition-based arguments too. When they say real world, that's not true. When decisions are cited, it's most often looked at the Commerce Clause or the 14th Amendment. The tests are not inside of the decision itself. It's in the rationale for the decision. They say the potential abuse of voting issue. This makes it really suck to be affirmative. This makes it really suck to be affirmative, and you should err affirmative negative for the whole when negatives when a whole bunch of backgrounds, and there is a negativity bias. They say the Williams counterpoint ground. This argument is all of Commerce Clause criticism. They estimate a new reps key argument on the other sheet of paper. I don't think that should apply to this argument. There's a new 1 in R framework. It's conditional. That's bad. It's moves to a C time. It's voting issue. Extend to which way C1 R wiggly evidence indicates that towards are good. They say that the Commerce is bad. Our evidence indicates that a woman has a choice to choose a tort, which means that it cannot commodify her because she can have a choice to choose a tort, or choose money, apology, or send her batter away. Like our Commerce is inevitable argument. They say that it's inevitable, but if you go to a criminal trial, you can also receive restitution, and it's just a higher likelihood that you will lose, and all of the victimization offense will apply, which means the status quo makes all of their impacts inevitable. Judge, except our Pope evidence indicates that all their Pope evidence ignites a lack of intervention because it's arbitrary. This is importantly contextualized in the context of their affirmative, because many things will be able to identified as violence in the future, which means that they will be excluded from Commerce Clause. Our Pope evidence indicates that it's arbitrariness, which bad R leads to clearly. They say this Resnick evidence is a straw person argument. It says opponents say, and then talks about the negative argument they're reading. Our second piece of Pope evidence indicates that we do not commodify because we allow for a certain particular amount of choice. It was commodified when we excluded women in the context of the violence against women acts. Our elder evidence indicates micropolitical solutions as also this answers their representations argument and justifies our permutation on this one too. Do the plan and to ban all commerce. Our public evidence indicates that the tort solved because there could be things such as an apology, which this goes well with the choice argument. Explain about our gender advantage in our sailor evidence indicates there's a bunch of other cool things that are coming in the future that will not be allowed under the world of the counterpoint because they have things and they will lead to a race to the bottom in terms of violence. Our Johnson evidence indicates the Supreme Court has to act in the context of gender to shape policies. Our Hogwarts evidence indicates that it's going to teaching state judges to end. Or Hagen evidence indicates that we are to the state. So all of their state good offense is offense for us because the state judges suck in the status quo. But we teach them to have federal standards, which they conceded block arguments. And they say the Reagan argument. This is answered by our Davis evidence. Reagan is a JD. You should prefer our Davis evidence because it's empirical. Now, what happened? It indicates the money. The reason why they weren't reported, which what Reagan is talking about, is because they settled outside of court. They say, and now we send the Picard evidence here. Our Davis evidence and also our Frosty evidence indicates that civil remedy deterred against violence and deinstitutionalized and changes the criminal statute, which means that all their criminal bad arguments are offense for us because we reform the criminal system. They say cumulative votes permanently and brutally. This is our tort reform good argument, which is our choice argument explained about counterplan. We will not go for permutation due to counterplan. It's not a voting issue or reason to reject us. The solvency advocate explained on the other flow about how even none of their authors say that they should overrule Morrison in this context, which means that they can be able to cross by this as offense for the team. Disco bad. They did not answer this argument. They say that they won't move that. It's not an answer to this argument. So point A, they could have destroyed 2AC time because it's the same as condition because we're forced to make permutations. So point B, if they did, they could have created a moving target. This is also not logical. If they win their punishment out there, well, potential abuse arguments, you should vote affirmative on these arguments because this is worse than theoretical objection because it happens inside the round. It's a voting issue now. Or distinguished arguments. Our explicit overrule is key that it has no exclusions because the lower courts would uphold it much better. Except our gold shield evidence indicates that the states are the only one. The states cannot solve because there are arbitrary judges. Our Bogwood evidence indicates we are the only way to solve these biased judges. Our Hagen evidence indicates we are key to money for the states. They say their side evidence and unused evidence indicates that all 50 states have them, which means that the alternative approach is our Hagen evidence indicates they do not solve because they don't have the money. All of their state good offense, all of their state good arguments are offense for us because we reform the states and teach the states. All of their state good offense doesn't indicate there's one state solving now. The environment advantage, it's not Luke evidence. It indicates that political solutions such as the plaintiffs and bill stuff. They say it's our boy a biopower takeout here indicates that there could not be a Nazi-style political takeover because we have a democratic system which would be able to check the government. They say habitats, all habitats are important. We can only talk about Section 9 because that's Morrison. Other parts of the ESA check this bill over there. They say lifted our Kurosawa evidence into this argument. It indicates there is a discourse of extinction essentially to create coalitions for change. They say that reps refers to this the new conditional argument was explained on the other sheet of paper. Our lifted evidence indicates we must encourage public to create movements that create change.
438.